All right, let's open up our Bibles to Genesis around 31. John, am I able to move up? Am I in the screen if I go up forward? Am I in the view if I come up forward since everybody's? All right, he said wherever I want to go. So let's all go outside, and that maybe wouldn't be the best option today, would it? Okay, well, I'm probably not going to be back here all that much anyway, but at least I'm a little closer if I need to get the mic to move it around to people. I don't have to go so far. We have been working through Genesis in here, and we kind of talked about last week Jacob's ladder, and now we pick up further development with Jacob with chapter 31, and we'll start at verse 27. So, what has just happened, by the way, here? What does your Bibles tell you? Kind of what's the beginning of chapter 31, you have a heading or something that says, what's going on here? Flees from Laban, okay? And in fact here, I wonder if I'm getting ahead of myself. Did we talk about, I think I did mark that wrong. Yeah. Sorry, I've jumped too far ahead. We really left off at 28. So 29. Let's go to 29. Because we haven't really gotten into, we just had the ladder, and we haven't gotten into the relationship really with Laban. So chapter 29, verse 15. This section is talking about really the transformation of Jacob. So 21:15, Laban says to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" So how would you, this little brief synopsis of what Laban speaking to Jacob, how would you describe, what do you think of Laban? Yeah, he's striving to be an honest guy here. I don't want you to just work for nothing. I want to pay you. What's the wages? Right. It's a stand-up character guy here, it seems. So, of course, Laban wants him not just to be a general relative, wants to be, and even closer in the family. Verse 16, Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger is Rachel. Leah's eyes were, what does your translation say? Weak, delicate, gentle. This is not meant to be flattering. So delicate might sound a little, and I don't know if she had a really thick glasses on because they're weak. I don't know, but whatever it is, this is not. There's something not as good about her. It could have not as appealing about her. But Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. So there's the contrast. She's got weak eyes. Rachel, though, she's beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel. And he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel." And Laban said, "Well, it's better that I give her to you than I should give her to some other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? Amy and I today celebrate 29 years of marriage, and they seem but a few days because they've been so wonderful. So I can't work that. Thanks. All right. So, how would you describe Jacob's? How does he feel about Rachel? Oh yeah, he's in love with her, right? And so then Jacob said to Laban, "All right, give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time has completed. 7 years are done. I want to have her. It's my wife." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a great feast. And in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be the servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. That seems an odd miss on Jacob's part. I don't know. What do you think might have been going on? What are some factors that you're like, wait a second, you're not Rachel. Where did you come from? Yeah, so there probably was a veil. It's dark, at least when she would be wearing a veil. Yes, he's got a big feast. He's probably saying, here, Jacob, have another drink, another toast. So he's not in the brightest thinking, clarity of mind here. Yes. There is a reference in chapter 24 of a woman with her veil, and she was covered in this kind of a setting. So it wouldn't be that hard to kind of pull off this switcheroo here. And so Jacob says to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then did you deceive me? And so Laban says, it's not so done in our country to give the younger one for the first. Complete the week of this one, and we'll give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. Now, how do we feel about Laban? Yes, sly, underhanded, deceiving. So, first 7 days, like a few days. The next 7, maybe not so fast moving. It had to be a little bit but he does get her soon. But there is no doubt some feeling of, I can't trust this guy. So Jacob did so and completed a week, and then Laban gave her his daughter Rachel to be his wife. And then he gives her Bilhah as a servant. And so Jacob went into Rachel also. But what does it say? He loved Rachel more than Leah and served Laban for another 7 years. I'm sure Jacob is, there's going to be a lot of reaping and sowing going on in this text, because everybody's going to end up, it's going to be quite a little soap opera. They're all going to get deceived at some point. But there is no doubt a cycle of this. And why? Why is this even, think about what's our larger narrative kind of about as God's working to fulfill the promise to Abraham? What's kind of some major themes we've been talking about? With barrenness and people making foolish mistakes, and that God is working in spite of, not through human excellence, in spite of their depravity. And it just, if you're writing a script, they say that the victors write history. Well, we're not doing a great job of trying to make everybody look super here, that's for sure. This is kind of real life, down and dirty, the mess of life as it unfolds. And so, so he +1 to Laban on the deceiving factor here. Your grandfather had to work 7 years for your grandmother? What was the story about that? Is that the deal made with the dad?
I don't know. There wasn't another sister.
Okay.
But I guess Grandpa, his dad must have got it from his teacher.
Okay.
But he
Made him work 7 years for him to marry the daughter. I said, well, it is Scripture. Of course, did he do a switcheroo on him?
No.
Okay, well, that's good.
No, he didn't.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. So, So notice verse 31 then. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, why do you think, and that's a strong word, what's your response to that? Why is this? Yours says unloved? Yeah. Mike? Here, let me give you this.
That text is, the phrases here, like I noticed in the King James, it would say hated and loved.
I don't think it's on the handheld.
Is it on?
Oh, there we go. John's got the online thing going too. He's trying to keep up with. Go ahead.
This text is real important for other texts.
Mm.
Because it shows that the expression becomes an idiom
Yeah.
for preference. We can't serve two masters. You will either hate the one and love the other. And that's a statement of preference.
Yeah.
And this is a statement of preference
Yeah.
too. He obviously did not hate Leah, but his preference was Rachel. That's a real critical text in multiple texts in Scripture, but the most important verse anywhere that it applies is when you're talking to a Calvinist. Romans chapter 9, it will say, Jacob I love, and Esau I hated. And they use that to say, God only loves part of humanity. Elect. But they're misusing the word hate and love. Because Paul's point in Romans 9 to 11 is God elected or chose to bring the promises through Jacob and through Isaac. That was his preference. That was his choice. It wasn't that he did not love them or care about them, but it was a statement of God's going to determine which son is going to bring about the promises. So it has nothing to do with literally hating the other part of the choice or the person that you're choosing.
Yeah. I think a passage that especially is meaningful when Jesus talks about unless you hate father, mother, not being my disciple, that really need to understand that Jewish idiom kind of approach there. But what are some things that we might say? What are some reasons that Jacob may not be as pleased with her? Why could she maybe bring up painful thoughts to him? He didn't choose her. He was kind of stuck with that. She was a part of a deception. She could have said, hey, by the way, I'm not, she just started talking to him. He probably would have realized it. So, while hate may be a very strong word, certainly she feels that she is not the chosen one, and she's not the one who gets the attention, not the one he loves. And God is moved by that, such. And what does he do? He opens her womb. He makes her to where she can bear children, while Rachel, in verse 31, is still barren. So, verse 32, Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. She also called his name Simeon. Again, she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this is time, my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons, and therefore his name was Levi. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called him Judah. Then she ceased bearing. Anything strike you about some of these sons? Any names stand out to you? Judah. That Jesus will come from the tribe of Judah, which is interesting to remember that she, the one who is not really loved, is the one through the Messiah will come. Just fits the track record of everything else through here. Any other names? Levi, right? And who will come from Levi? The Levites. And who will be Levites? Priests, right? Not all Levites were priests, but all priests were Levites. So, and of course, Reuben will be the oldest of them, and will seem to be a little wiser, trying to save. He'll save Joseph later, but her children will have significant roles in the coming that God's working through. The one that was not loved. Chapter 30, verse 1. Yep, hold on, Deborah.
The first three times it seems like the focus is now maybe Jacob will let
We have the mic on again, John. I know you're looking at the screen over there, but go ahead.
Okay, the first three times her focus was maybe my husband will love me now because I have children. The last one she kind of gives up on that. So this time I will praise the Lord.
That's a good observation. Yeah. From I'm going to seek the Lord's praise. I mean, yeah.
Kind of giving up on it.
Yeah. Because if that didn't do it, what's going to do it? Yeah. So chapter 30, verse 1, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. Now she's even got, her sister's not so high on her. She said to Jacob, "Give me children or I shall die." Now, how do you think Jacob felt about that? Well, it's not like we're not working on it here. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Verse 2, Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. He said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of your womb?" Then she said, "Here is my servant Bilhah. Go into her, so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her." Does that sound familiar? That was the whole Sarah move with Abraham. Why don't you just use Hagar? We'll just do it through that. And so she gave him Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went to her, and Bilhah conceived and bore a son. Rachel said, "God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son." Therefore, she called his name Dan. Verse 22. And then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her, and he opened her womb. So now she's going to bear her own son. She said, "God has taken away my reproach," and she called his name Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." Chapter 31, verse 9. "Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me." So now we jump into here with these kids. But now, what's happening here starting in verse 9 and this area? Now this is where Jacob gets back at Laban, and they start breeding sheep. And if somebody could explain to me how exactly this is all working, I'd love to know. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But somehow, at the end of the day, it appears Jacob is breeding the sheep in a way. You got your sheep, I got my sheep, and you got the spotted ones, I got the striped ones, whatever. But he's breeding them in a way that he's getting more and more of the sheep, right, through this system that he's doing here. So, he gets, his animals are the multicolored ones, and Laban's have the solid color. But, when you probably know something about maybe dominant and recessive genes, you breed the two and you get the recessive. Anyway, he's got a plan working out. He's getting all the sheep. So his are increasing more and more. And why is, when Laban says, "Hey, what's going on here?" What's Jacob's answer to that? Why am I getting more sheep? Well, God's just blessing me. I don't know what to tell you, Laban. God just likes me more than you. I don't know. Take it up with God. What are you going to do? Verse 27, chapter 31. "Why did you flee secretly and trick me?" So then he takes off when Laban's really getting set, takes off, and "I would have sent you away with myrrh and songs and tambourine and lyre. And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Farewell. Now you've done this foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night." Now that's an interesting way to speak about God. What can we glean from how he describes God? Your Father. He's not really my God, but he did speak to me. I would think if he spoke to you, that might get your attention. But he spoke to me, but he's still the God of your father. Spoke to me, saying, be careful. And again, it might be just saying, by the way, this is a God very personal to you because it's your father's God. But there does seem to be one of the reasons. How can we know that maybe he's not all in for God? He's got idols. And that's one of the things they took when they took off. He said, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now Rachel, verse 34, had taken the household gods, put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them. And Laban felt all about the tent, but he did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry. I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me. Can't get up. It's that time of the month. So he said, oh, don't worry about it. Let it ride. So searched around, doesn't find the gods. And now, so here's the cycle, right? So you've got Laban deceiving Jacob, then Jacob deceiving Laban, and now Rachel deceiving. It's hard to keep up. Laban, everybody's getting one pulled over on him. It's quite a little cycle, family drama going on here. And chapter 32, verse 6. So then we start moving away from that whole story. They move on. And now that he's going toward Esau. Now, what was our last interaction with Esau? As Jacob's coming home. Yeah, he had stole the birthright, and then he dupes the blind old father into giving him the blessing. And what was Esau's response? Yeah, I think the language was Esau took comfort in thinking about ways he was going to kill Jacob. That's the only thing that gave him comfort, was killing his brother. So Jacob said, I need to get out of town. Well, now that's the last interaction they had. So he's coming back, and messengers come to Jacob saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you. And what does he have with him? 400 men. Now, why do you think Esau has 400 men with him? This is an army. He is coming to do him in. Jacob what was his response? He was greatly afraid and distressed. And so he divided the people who were with him, the flocks and the herds and the camels, into two camps, thinking if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, then the other camp left can escape. Now, how would you describe his plan here? Yeah, that's not the best strategy. What else could you read into this? Right. But what does it say about? It also says something about his faith, perhaps. There's not really a sense that God's going to, but he is in the verge. He is going to be going through a change here. But we still see seems a lack of trust, and what's the, how can I get out of this with losing the least? And so then in verses 14 and 15, he's sending bribes, all this 200, the goats and sheep and rams and everything ahead, trying to bribe the brother. Verse 22, the same night arose, and he took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, his 11 children, so all his family crossed the ford with Jacob. He took them and sent them across the stream and everything else he had. And Jacob was left alone. Okay, so what does Jacob know right now? Esau's coming with 400 men. So Jacob does the honorable thing and sends his family all on the other side of the river toward Esau, and he stays where he is. I don't know how. That doesn't sound like a Braveheart moment there, does it? Sends everybody ahead of him, and he stays. Jacob is here, though, alone, and verse 24, a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. Now, this is interesting. Who's this guy wrestling with him?
There are 2 thoughts on
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Anybody else have any other thoughts? You want to just tell us which one it is so we can move on? What do you think? Well, by the language he uses in verse 30, I have seen God face to face is the language he uses. There just seemed to be some encounter with God. Now, how all that works, and I don't know. But at a minimum, there is a divine encounter here of great significance. Now, why in the world, though, this seems unusual? You think of any other accounts where somebody wrestles with God, or, even a good arm wrestling moment with God, or anything like that? I mean, and then we go on. Listen to this. It gets more weird. Verse 25, when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. So now it's like, if this is this super divine being, it's like, well, he realizes Jacob's too much, he can't take him, so I'm just going to zap him, his hip, and put it out of joint. And then he said, let me go, for the day has broken. So the guy's like to Jacob, let me go. But Jacob said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And he said to him, what's your name? All right, let's pause for a moment. Somebody please explain to me what is going on here. Anybody have any thoughts?
I think it's symbolic messages.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost impossible to say precisely what all the meanings of this
Yeah.
thing are, but it seems to me that he could have hurt him, but it had significance in it, and that it's teaching him and his posterity.
Mm.
And so that's something that the nation of Israel has learned about their forefathers when they did their encounters with God. And so they're learning about God. I really think that it's
Yeah, probably not literally that Jacob almost took God out. Had a God in a headlock until he let him go.
I think it's predictive of the relationship that Jacob's children are going to have with God. That it's not an easy, straight path, that they wrestle with their relationship with God from the beginning, including Jacob, and that's why his name is changed. That it's not an easy path, but they hang in there. Jacob and his children do hang in there together, and God hangs in with them. That it is like a wrestling match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like this. Yep. There you go.
The name is all the power of what a name is.
Mm.
It's all through Bible. There's a supernatural power to it, supernatural significance. God reveals himself to Moses, tells him what his name is, and you get that all through the Bible, especially in the Gospel of John, where it's the name of Jesus. So, and by the way, Plato talks about that too. He says the true meaning of a name is true spiritual, magical, mystical significance of the person.
Mm.
So knowing your name is really going to give you the power of it.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. So this moment is remarkable and, again, unexpected. It seems very odd and different from experiences we've seen before and how people interact with God and how God interacts with people. But I think that, first of all, is to say, pay attention here. Something is happening here that is going to shift. In the story of Abraham and his family, God is engaging humanity at a remarkable time in a very unusual way, and pay attention here, what's happening. there is a wrestling, and going on. And when he wrestled with him, he said, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. And then, verse 28, then he said, your name, first verse 27, he said to him, what is your name? And he said, my name is Jacob. And we already talked about what Jacob means, right? Kind of hill grabber. But it comes to be almost like an idiom for deceiver. Jacob has, granted, it's not like other people in his life are the most noble, but he is also right in the middle of that. He, for a young age, it's been about kind of manipulating and using leverage to get people to what you want and deceiving. And hill grabber Jacob is, when he says, what is your name? Jacob says it. This is what my name is. But now it's important because then he says, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but you will be known as Israel. And what does Israel mean? Because a striver with God, there's some, but yeah, I think this, or even kind of coming this idea of this wrestling with God, but this striver with God. In fact, you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. All right. Then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And there he blessed him. And that's interesting. Why didn't he tell him his name? Maybe God, back to Russ was talking about that there is a sense you're not, maybe you're not, this is not about, there's mystery still with this, but he will come to understand later on what's happening. But right now it's still a mystery, and he needs to be left in the dark. He's not ready. But Jacob calls the place Peniel, which means face of God. He calls the place the face of God. Now what's significant about, and again he says, because I've seen the face of God, and yet my life was delivered. Now why is that? What does he mean his life was delivered having seen the face of God? Right. I mean, if you see, Exodus 33, you see the face of God, you're going to die. So there is this encounter with this divine being that, but God in this, if you think about, again, I don't understand what all that means, but that God would even self-limit himself such to have this interaction. Not that he made himself vulnerable to Jacob, but there is something about this interaction that one could almost see a pre-incarnate sense of God who allows him, enters this, a posture of weakness to come. Well, weakness is not a good term because it's not like the power wasn't God. It's more of about a laying down of a sense of power, yielding a sense of himself to wrestle with Jacob. But a part of that is important for the transformation of Jacob. Because if he doesn't, then Jacob will be destroyed. To behold the glory in the face of God, he cannot do that and live in his righteousness, God's righteousness, and Jacob's unrighteous state. So God reveals himself in this other way that will lead to his transformation. And the sun, verse 31, rose up upon him, and as he passed Penuel, which is just a variant of Peniel, and he was, what's happening to him now? He walks with a limp. Why did, I'm guessing he did that the rest of his life. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that's in the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip. So for the rest of his life, probably he walked with a limp. Why do you think God did that? Yeah, that would be a powerful reminder that you may have wrestled with God, but you've been transformed out of that. You've been changed out of that. Can you think of anybody else who had this divine encounter with God and was left somehow transformed, even maybe limited? Paul, a thorn in the flesh, when he had this divine encounter, the third heaven, whatever that was about, that was given a thorn in the flesh to keep him humble. So then it's just interesting some reactions here that in the encounter with God that he leaves him, he's conscious of his weakness and reminded of his weakness. He has this consuming desire interaction with God to be blessed by him. I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. And even the confession of who he is, I think, in his name, to face who he was powerful for him. He has a nature that has a problem. And it's self-directed. It manipulates people. It needs to be addressed. And so out of that, from this wrestling with God comes some things. He gets a new name. You're now Israel, striver with God. And so now we don't speak about the 12 tribes of Jacob. We speak about the 12 tribes of Israel, his son, or his sons of Israel. He's got a power. He says, because you've struggled with God and men and overcome. There is a sense that I think he has a confidence through that. He has been blessed through that. He is now a testimony that he has experienced the presence of God, and it changed him. And it's a new day. The Jacob that sends everybody ahead of himself, even his wife and kids ahead of himself to meet the coming army. A new day dawns. The sun rose as he passed Peniel. There's something that is different about today than yesterday and the day before that. As he limps, though, the limp perhaps recognizing that power comes through understanding your limitation. And so, chapter 33, verse 1, Jacob lifted up his eyes and he looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. He divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two female servants, and he put the servants with their children in front, and the Leah with the children, Rachel and Joseph last of all. And then he himself does what? He goes ahead of them. See the difference? Now Jacob, who sends them ahead of him, he goes in the front to face the army of 400. And what does he do? He begins bowing down 7 times until his brother came near. So the army is coming and the brother, and Jacob's out there in the middle of the field on the ground just bowing down before him. Verse 4, but Esau does what? He ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, who are these with you? And Jacob said, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. Servants drew near, they and their children, bowed down, and Leah likewise, and her children drew near and bowed. And at last Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. And Esau said, what do you mean by all this company that I am in? And Jacob answered, to find favor in the sight of my Lord. But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have. The company is all the things he had sent ahead, the animals I've sent as gifts to him. He said, I have plenty. Keep it. Verse 9, God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Paddan-aram, and he blessed him. And God said to him, your name is Jacob. No longer shall you be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. So he called his name again Israel. So you're reinforcing that name. Yep. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. Anybody else have any other final thoughts? I think one other transformation is interesting to see in chapter 35, verse 2. Jacob said to his household and to all who are with him, get rid of the foreign gods you have made, that you have with you. Purify yourselves and change your clothes, and come, let us go to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone. So a final part of the evidence of that transformation is it's time to get rid of these idols. The Lord God will be the only one that we serve now. Karen?
Also, when Jacob goes to meet God, he calls him, he says he's a servant.
Mm-hmm.
Calls him his Lord. He's bowing down before Esau and humbling himself,
Mm-hmm.
trying to make restitution.
A big difference between, getting your birthright and then duping the dad to get what I'm going to get from you, to I want to exalt you, right? And I think this is part of just beautifully illustrating the change that all happens the night he wrestles with God. And when that happened in his life, his name change is symbolic of something very different with Jacob now. A new direction, new focus, and it impacts his relationships, even the ones that he was estranged to. And I don't know if his brother was thinking on the ride there like David when he was going to go kill Nabal, just anger and hate in his heart. But when he saw him bowed down, that it told him there was something different about his brother. And I don't know if that was his intent before, but there is reconciliation that comes even in the most damaged relationship. Yeah. Okay.